She was Laura Ingalls, the global face of American innocence, shielded from the world by the towering presence of Michael Landon. But the moment the studio lights on the Little House set went dark, a secret Hollywood romance began with a starving actor who didn't even have a pot to cook in. Her spiritual father could protect her from the industry, but he couldn't protect her from her own memories. At 62, Melissa Gilbert finally reveals the man she could never forget, proving that a teenage love can outlast even the most legendary legacy. The girl the world knew as Laura Ingalls wasn't always the girl she felt like inside. Born Melissa Ellen Gilbert in the vibrant, chaotic heart of Los Angeles. In 1964, her life began with a plot twist that would define her search for connection. Adopted just a day after her birth by actors Paul Gilbert and Barbara Crane, Melissa was born into a legacy of performance. But beneath the Hollywood pedigree was a young girl navigating a landscape of shifting identities. She was a high-energy child, a vibrant spark in a house filled with the echoes of the industry. Her family wasn't just in show business. They were the business. Yet despite the artistic surroundings, Melissa carried a quiet hunger for a sense of belonging that was entirely her own. She was talented, yes, but she was also deeply sensitive, a girl who wore her heart on her sleeve even before she knew how to act. Her destiny was sealed when she was just 9 years old. Standing in a room filled with hundreds of other young hopefuls, Melissa was the one who caught the eye of the most powerful man on television, Michael Landon. When she was cast as Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie, Melissa wasn't just entering a television set, she was entering a sanctuary. For the next decade, the Ingalls farm became her real home, and Michael Landon became her spiritual father. On screen, he was Pa, the moral compass of the American frontier. Off screen, he was the towering protector who shielded her from the predatory nature of a 1970s Hollywood. For Melissa, the pigtails and the prairie dirt were a suit of armor. Landon created a world for her, where innocence was preserved, but that protection came with a crushing weight. While other girls her age were experiencing the messy, unscripted reality of growing up, Melissa was living a pioneer life that was frozen in time. The success of Little House was a global phenomenon, and as the show climbed to the top of the charts, Melissa Gilbert became the face of American girlhood. For over 200 episodes, the world watched her grow from a scrappy child into a young woman. But the transition was a painful one, played out under the relentless glare of the public eye. By the time she reached her mid-teens, the pressure to maintain the Laura Ingalls image was reaching a breaking point. She was America's sweetheart, a golden girl who represented purities and grit. Yet inside the trailer on the set of The Prairie, a different girl was emerging. Melissa was becoming a woman who wanted to experience the heat of a real Hollywood life, one that wasn't dictated by a script or a spiritual father's protective gaze. As Little House moved into its final years, Melissa began her transition into adult roles, starring in television movies that challenged her wholesome image. She was no longer just the girl on this pony. She was a versatile actress, proving she could handle the complexities of adulthood. But every time the director yelled, "Cut!" the same feeling of isolation returned. Michael Landon had built a fortress around her, and for a long time it kept her safe. But a fortress can also become a cage. She had fame, she had the approval of millions, and she had the legacy of the pigtails. But what she didn't have was a memory that belonged only to her, one that wasn't shared with the world or approved by Pa. She was at the absolute peak of her career, a household name with a future that looked mapped out in gold. But in the quiet hours after the studio lights went dark, Melissa began to drift away from the sanctuary of the prairie. She was looking for something, or someone who didn't see her as Laura Ingalls. She wanted to be seen as Melissa. And it was in that search for herself that she crossed paths with a young unknown actor who was living on the fringes of the industry. He was a man who had nothing to offer her but his intensity, and a world that Michael Landon could never have predicted. As she prepared to say goodbye to the Little House legacy, She was about to say hello to a romance that would haunt her for the next 40 years. Little did she know the boy she was about to meet would eventually become the biggest star in the world, but to her, he would always be the man she could never forget. By the early 1980s, the pigtails were gone, but the world wouldn't let go of the girl from the prairie. Melissa Gilbert found herself navigating a Hollywood that was light years away from the wholesome morality of Walnut Grove. She was the it girl of television, a young woman with a famous face and a restless heart. Before the secret of Tom Cruise would take root in her memory, Melissa's romantic life was already a tabloid fixture. She was famously linked with Rob Lowe, forming one half of a quintessential Hollywood power couple. It was a romance of flashbulbs, red carpets, and the high-octane energy of two rising stars. But beneath the glamour of the Brat Pack era, Melissa was still searching for a connection that felt grounded, something that wasn't dictated by the public's obsession with her image. She was a woman who had spent her childhood being told who she was by directors and producers, and in her personal life, she craved an intimacy that felt unscripted. It was during this transition in the fragile gap between her child stardom and her adult career that she met a young man from New Jersey who went by the name Tom Mapother. To the rest of the world, he was a nobody, an aspiring actor with a jagged intensity and a hunger that bordered on desperation. He had moved to Los Angeles with nothing but a dream and a fierce, almost frightening focus. When Melissa met him, he wasn't the polished icon of Top Gun or the invincible hero of Mission Impossible. He was a starving actor living in a tiny apartment, someone who literally didn't have a pot to cook in. Melissa, already a veteran of the industry with a bank account to match her fame, saw something in him that no one else did. She saw a boy who was as vulnerable as he was driven. Their romance wasn't born in the VIP lounges of Sunset Strip. It was born in the quiet, dusty corners of an LA that still felt like a small town for those who were struggling. The nature of their relationship was sweet, almost startlingly innocent given the reputation of the industry. Melissa was the established star, the one who knew how to navigate the system. Yet she was drawn to Tom's raw, unvarnished energy. In a gesture that perfectly captures the tenderness of that time, Melissa reveals that she was the one who bought him his very first set of dishes. It was a domestic nurturing act, a young woman trying to build a sense of home for a boy who had none. While the world sought to the golden girl, Tom saw the woman who cared enough to make sure he had a plate to eat off of. They shared a world of quiet dinners and long conversations about acting far removed from the towering presence of Pa Ingalls or the frantic pace of the studio. It was a brief, sparkling moment in time where two young people were just Melissa and Tom, before the machinery of fame turned them into something else. Now at 62, Melissa Gilbert is looking back across 4 decades of marriages, motherhood, and a life lived in the unrelenting spotlight. She has survived health scares, public divorces, and the inevitable fading of the childhood fame that once defined her. Yet when she speaks about her past, it isn't the legends of the little house set or the high-profile heartbreaks of her 20s that she lingers on. She reveals that Tom Cruise, that intense, starving boy who didn't have a pot to cook in, is the man she could never truly forget. It's a staggering admission for a woman who has lived so much life. Why does a teenage romance, lasting only a few months, hold such a grip on her soul after 40 years? The answer lies in the paradox of who Tom was before the world took him. She remembers the new home, the shared dreams, and the way he looked at her before the mask of movie star was permanently fused to his face. For Melissa, Tom Cruise isn't the global superstar on the billboard. He's the boy who held her hand when she was trying to find out who she was outside of Laura Ingalls. Their breakup was inevitable, a collision of two lives moving at different speeds. As Tom's career began to explode with the force of a supernova, the focus that had once been directed at her was redirected toward the horizon of his own destiny. The fame didn't just arrive for Tom. It consumed him, lifting him into a different level of reality, where a girl from the prairie could no longer reach him. There was no grand betrayal, no dramatic scandal, just the slow, painful realization that the boy she bought dishes for was disappearing into the legend he was becoming. The paradox of this memory is that the more famous Tom Cruise became, the more special that brief time became for Melissa. For 40 years, she has watched him from afar, seeing him perform incredible stunts and command the world's attention, all while knowing a version of him that no one else does. She knew the boy who was hungry. She knew the man who was afraid he wouldn't make it. She realizes that he stays in her heart, not because of what he became, but because of what they were together during a fleeting window of purity. While her marriages to others brought her children and deep life lessons, Tom represents a version of herself that was still full of unwritten potential. He is the man she can never forget because he is the keeper of her own youth, the one who saw her when she was finally stepping out of the pigtails and into the light. Melissa's inner life has been a journey of reconciliations with the shadow of Michael Landon, with the legacy of the show, and with the women she has been. But in the quiet hours of her 60s, it is the memory of that young actor that brings a smile to her face. It's a testament to the power of a first real Hollywood love. In an industry built on artifice, what she had with Tom felt brutally irreversible and honest. At 62, she isn't pining for a movie star. She is honoring the memory of 2 kids in a small apartment, proving that no matter how many legacies you build, or how many decades pass, the heart always remembers the one who was there, when the world was still quiet before the lights became too bright to see. He wasn't Michael Landon, and he wasn't Rob Lowe. He was the starving boy who didn't have a pot to cook in, and for Melissa Gilbert, that has always been more than enough to last a lifetime. Now as she looks out over her own small farm, the memory of Tom Cruise doesn't feel like a regret. It feels like a bookmark. She doesn't view him through the lens of a tabloid reader or a film critic. Instead, she looks back at that young version of Melissa Gilbert, the one who bought a starving actor his first set of dishes with profound compassion. She understands now that Tom wasn't just a boyfriend, he was a mirror. He represented the exact moment she began to claim her own life, a brief window of time before Landon's protection faded and Tom's global fame began. Even now, after 40 years of life lived in the unrelenting spotlight, that version of Tom Mapother remains preserved in her mind, intense, hungry, and brutally honest. Melissa Gilbert's journey is a testament to the fact that you can never truly outrun your past, but you can learn to love it. Her legacy isn't just the pigtails of Laura Ingalls, or the grit of a pioneer girl. It is the courage of a woman who isn't afraid to be real. From a child star shielded by Michael Landon to a woman who navigated the heart of Hollywood's elite, she has proven that your first real love defines you far more than your last one. She has moved from being America's sweetheart to being a woman who owns her scars and her memories. The insight she leaves us with at 62 is profound. The man you can never forget isn't always the one who stayed the longest. Often he is the one who marked the exact moment you discovered who you were when the world wasn't watching. Tom Cruise may be an untouchable icon to the rest of the planet, but to the girl from the prairie, he will always be the boy with the jagged intensity and the empty kitchen. Melissa Gilbert has proven that a teenage love can survive 40 years of Hollywood history, staying alive in the heart long after the studio lights have gone dark. What about you? Is there a person from your past who stays with you even after the decades have passed? Someone who saw you before you became the person you are today. Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through Melissa's memories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories of the legends we love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.